So today we're going to talk about a long end result. Now, what I've done is I've pre-paneled this a little bit. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I've done a central division line from the apex to the front hairline. And then as I spin this around, you can see that I've done a division line from right behind the apex all the way down to the mastoid. There's also a center division line there and the same on the other side as well. So I pre-paneled this just for control. Now, based on being behind the chair, to make it quicker, if you know the guest's hair and you know exactly density, formation, growth patterns, and things like that, you might not need to pre-panel this as much. But today I'm pre-paneling this just to show you guys some control and where I'm working for clarity. So what would it mean to you to be so much faster with your haircuts and get through them with still having a lot of control and intentionality? So today what I'm going to show you guys is a way to do a shorter, medium layered haircut while still keeping all of the length. In addition to that, only using 3 stationary guides. So this could be cut in 3 sections based on the person's density. Today I'm gonna take a couple more sections just in case you guys would need to take more sections for someone who has hair that's like a larger amount and you would wanna take smaller sections and work that way. So let's get started. So what I'm gonna do to start off is I'm gonna take a central section from the apex all the way down to the front hairline. I'm gonna borrow a little piece from each side so I have a stationary guide that's equal on both and I'm not guessing. So first and foremost, I'm gonna create that central guide. It's gonna be the most important section that we're working with. So as I work here, that's gonna create my guide. First, I'm gonna take these clips out and now I'm gonna start here at the apex and take a section all the way down to the front hairline. And then I'm gonna comb this out of the way for control. And behind the chair scenarios, you might not have to clip this, but I'm gonna clip it just so we can give a really great visual of where we're working. Now I'm gonna do the same thing on side number 2 by taking the same amount all the way down to the front hairline. Same thing, moving this out of the way for control. Turning my guest or doll here to the side, I'm now going to pick up my section and choose my length. Now, one thing that if you've noticed is I don't have the outline in this section. So her perimeter down here is not really being controlled right now. So as I pick this up, I have to be mindful if we want to keep all of her length, how short I can or cannot make this. If they don't care about their length as much, if their preference is, you know what, I want my layer to be this long, a couple inches or so can come off my length, we would actually cut it with the interior first and not really cutting the outline. So section number 1, I'm gonna control this in my fingers, tight side of the comb. I'm gonna slightly over direct or pull the hair forward so it's gonna increasingly get longer towards the back of the bone structure. And I'm gonna choose a length that I prefer. Now you and your guest or client sitting in the chair, you guys will determine how long the shortest layer is also by maintaining all of their length. So here's section number 1 for me. I also want to show you guys a way that you could create a face framing layer at the same time that you're creating her layer internally. So really all a face framing layer is a shorter layer here at the front and getting longer towards the back and still maintains all of their outline. So this is going to be the start of her face framing as well as the layer for her haircut. So I'm doing a couple things at one time. So just to kind of recap this section number 1, there's some forward over direction. My cutting line is shorter at the front and it's getting longer towards the back of the bone structure, and that's gonna be my section number 1. Now, if we turn her around and we kind of split her back down the center again, you'll be able to see a little bit of this face frame that we have. So let me switch her to the front. Now you have the ability to see that she has this like face frame started. Even though we don't have the overall length there, we do have a little bit of this face frame started here right below the jawline, and it's gonna increasingly get longer towards the bottom, and here's how we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna put a center division line back down the middle and kind of reestablish that center, and then I'm gonna clip this over for control. Again, if you have enough moisture in the hair, you can just comb that out of the way. Now, I'm gonna start by taking these horizontal sections that are parallel to my central division line. So if you can see that there, I just took a parallel section to guide number 1. This is gonna elevate into section number 1. I'm also still gonna over direct it forward, so it's still maintaining some length in the back. So I'm gonna keep her here so you can see how I'm elevating that into section number 1. So 2 travels up and higher into section number 1. I'm gonna spot my guide, and then I'm gonna match that. So it's slightly getting longer towards the back, and it's elevated really high towards the center. I'm gonna re-comb, re-elevate, push my fingers back on the section just to continue my guide there. So everything with the section number 1 so far, so 2 into 1. Now I'm gonna leave that there, I'm not gonna comb it out. I'm gonna step back around, and now I'm gonna take a slightly larger section that's right below the parietal ridge. So it's slightly bigger than the previous, you can see it's a little bit larger. And then I'm gonna stand over here, comb everything into section number 1. So the way I control this, that gives me a lot of security, is I'm actually holding this like I would a ponytail here in the front. So I'm picking this up with like manhandling it here a little bit, but that also gives me the ability to organize everything so I can then place my fingers where my cutting line should be. So that's a little bit of a pro tip to help you with some control. Now lastly, I'm just gonna take everything up into section number 1, a lot of high elevation, still some forward over direction, and now I'm gonna add that in. So what this is gonna do is it's layering everything to the outline. In addition, it's making it longer towards the back. So once I comb all this down, you can start to see that we have a little bit of a face frame started there, and it connects all the way down to the perimeter. Now I'm gonna do the same thing on side number 2. Side number 2, same horizontal sections, and they're gonna elevate all the way to the center. Notice that I haven't changed body positions. I'm still standing on this same side. I'm right-handed, so I'm standing over the client's right shoulder here, and I'm pushing now everything to the center, and then that way I can still maintain some control for the outline. Now I'm gonna take a big jump here, and I'm gonna take all of this just to show you that it's possible to do this whole panel in maybe 1 or 2 sections. I'm gonna push all this to the middle, still using that ponytail style of control, and then holding it in my fingers, and then taking everything to a stationary guide there in the center. As I comb it down, you're gonna be able to see it starts that face framing for me, and it layers it all the way down to the perimeter. Now the fact that we elevated it so high allows me to maintain a lot of her outline still on the guest. Now I'm actually gonna move to the back quad right behind the left ear. So if we were to cross-check this, what I would need to do is I would need to cross this perpendicular to the sections that I took. So I took sections from front to back. So to cross-check this, I need to take a section from top to bottom. So I'm gonna do that really quick. So here's a section from the center division line all the way down to on top of the ear. I'm gonna pick this up, and I need to do the same elevation and also same over direction. So I picked this up all the way to the center, so same elevation, and I over directed it slightly forward. So now that we see it's getting shorter to longer at my fingertips to my knuckles, shorter to longer. So I'm gonna use this as a stationary guide, so all this isn't gonna be incorporated anymore. And I'm showing you this view here to show my cutting line, and I'm gonna show how that actually works. So I'm gonna start taking pie sections, meaning there's sections that are more narrow towards the apex and then wider towards the bottom hairline, and I'm gonna push and over direct that forward all the way into that stationary guide. So this is our second stationary guide. So pie section here through the back, I'm gonna pick that up and elevate it forward to my cross check. Once I get it here to my cross check, I'm gonna maintain a high elevation and still forward over direction. So very high elevation, forward over direction. There's my cutting line as my guide, and I'm gonna cut short at my fingertips and then long towards my knuckles. So what this does, it allows me to connect it to the front with this shorter layer, but at the same time, maintain all the length of the outline. So that's my first guide for the back. You can tell that seamlessly matches from the front. I'm gonna spin her slightly, and then hopefully you guys can see the rest of this over direction. So now with my next pie section, which is just the remainder of this, I'm gonna push this forward. Now this is a very long section. You see all this hair dropping out here. So my fingers aren't that long, so I could actually segment this in half, take this up to where I need it to be. So once I take this right past the crown area, I can then make this a stationary guide here behind the ear, just like I did before. There's my cutting line, there's my guide, and I'm now gonna add that in, okay? Now I still have all of this down here to add in, so I'm gonna pick that up separately. I'm gonna elevate that really high and over direct it all the way forward. I'm gonna look for my guide, and then I'm gonna continue to add all of that in. Now, benefit of this is it's very easy to push all that forward into one section. Again, if my doll or a guest had less hair, we would have the opportunity to do it all in one section. Okay, so there's the front and the back. I'm gonna do the same exact thing on side number 2. So as I spin her, you can see this back panel here. I'm gonna pull all this forward towards me because I do wanna cut from short to long. That's my preference. So now I'm gonna show you if I did this all in one section. So I'm taking my clips out. I'm gonna reinstate my guide here on this other front panel. I'm gonna make sure that the forward over direction there gives me that short to long end result, which it does. This is gonna be my guide. So I'm gonna put this down, and now I'm gonna organize all of this hair up and forward. So this takes a little bit more control and effort, even though it seems like this is the faster, easier way. It doesn't mean that we are letting go of all the controls that we've learned. So I'm still gonna have all this control. I really want a smooth comb from the base all the way to my cutting line. So grabbing everything that I can and putting it in my fingers. Okay, now once I have this up where I need it to be, same forward over direction, same high elevation, there's my guide, there's my uncut hair, and you can see all of that over direction forward, and then I'm working all the way to the back of my cutting line. So this was done in one section, and we could have done this whole thing in 3 based on how much hair they have. The less hair they have, I would have the opportunity to take less sections because everything could be combined into one. So the front panels could be high elevation, forward over direction, all in one section, and then the back two could be cut in one apiece. So you could actually cut this in 3 sections. So this is my foundational process to work through a face frame layer that also translates into layering for the rest of the haircut. It's short in the front, longer in the back. It's also short on the inside, longer towards the outside. So we would call this a round concave layer.